Hey, what's up guys? Sean here, and today we're gonna be talking about how to achieve an infinite return in real estate. I'm really excited about this one because I'm also gonna be sharing an example of one of my properties that I'm able to get an infinite return from, how I went about doing that, how I found it, and also the steps that you should take in order to start figuring out how you could possibly get an infinite return as well. So if this is something that excites you, let's stay tuned, but make sure you crush that like button for me right now. It would mean the world to me. Hit the subscribe button. If you are new to this channel, welcome. If you're all about financial freedom, financial independence, living life on your terms, becoming a creator of your future instead of a manager of life's events, well, this might be the channel for you. So make sure you check out some of my other videos on investing, on the current economy, and just creating that freedom for yourself. Infinite returns. Before we dive strictly into that, we have to take a step back and just talk about returns in general. Typically, when an investor invests in real estate, one of the things they want to really look for is their ROI, which stands for their return on investment. This is a term you're going to hear a lot of from real estate investors or even stock investors to help evaluate which investment they should go for. Typically, the higher the ROI, the better the investment. So if I have two investments I'm looking at, one's giving me a 30% ROI or return on investment, and one's giving me 10% ROI, I'm more than likely gonna wanna go with the one that's 30%. How do you calculate your ROI? Well, to calculate your ROI, you're simply taking how much money you get back versus how much you invested. So let's just keep it simple. Let's say that you have $100,000 you're gonna invest in a rental property. And so you invest that $100,000 and each year you get back 30 grand. Well, that means if you take the $30,000 divided by $100,000, you're gonna get 30%. So you're achieving a 30% ROI. But what I wanna talk about today is how you get an infinite ROI. Well, 100% ROI would typically be that if you invested $100,000, you'd be getting $100,000 back that particular year. And then each subsequent year, you'd probably be getting back $100,000. But to achieve an infinite return, that means that you have to have $0 invested and still be collecting a profit. Now, of course, when it comes to infinite return, that can mean a lot of things because technically if you have $0 invested and you're getting $1 profit, well, you are technically getting an infinite return. Most people wouldn't brag that much about getting $1 every single year with no money invested. Now, while I can promise you that's not the case with me, in fact, I probably get somewhere around like $400 or $500 a month, no money invested. Let's talk about how I actually was able to do that. So a couple years ago, I decided to make another financial purchase, another rental property purchase, and I found a house in Ohio, which is originally where I'm from, and I found a foreclosure. This foreclosure was an REO, so real estate owned, bank owned, and it was selling for $19,500. It was a 2-bed, 1-bath. And of course, some of you guys are already thinking like, what in the world? There's actually houses like that now? Like, yes, there are still some markets out there that are like that. But there's a couple things that was really exciting about this. You see, number one, when I saw the house, I knew that it was worth probably between $60,000, $65,000 based on the comparables. So after going through a little bit of an inspection process, making sure that it looked pretty good, at least the majors, which is like the foundation, the roof, I concluded that this was a pretty good house. Keep in mind, there was a lot of repairs that needed to happen. This place did have a lot of interior work, a lot of interior damage that needed. I wanted to add an extra bathroom and I wanted to add an extra bedroom. So I had a couple options here. After kind of assuming and assessing how much I knew I needed to fix the place up on, I decided to actually get a personal loan. Because the house was only $19,500, I knew that I actually was probably gonna be eligible for a personal loan. And so I went to the local bank and got eligible for a $25,000 personal loan. This was a 5-year note on around 5.5% interest, 5.49% to be exact. So I took that $25,000, I put $19,500 into purchasing the house, and I essentially took the other $5,000 to put towards repairs. Now, like I said, in order to have an infinite return, you have to have $0 invested. But I did have some money invested up front. $5,000 did not cover all the repairs. In fact, in addition to the $5,000 I used that was extra from the $25,000 personal loan, I probably also personally invested around another $20,000 fixing it up over that next year. Now, there's no way it should have taken me a year, but I ran into a lot of issues doing this out of state. But in the end, I was still able to do this particular property and get it done. But if you remember, I said when I did the comparables before I bought it, I knew this house was gonna be valued at $60,000 to $65,000. When I did actually get it appraised, sure enough, it came back for around $62,000 to $63,000. Now, this is where it gets interesting because at that point, I'm able to do a refinance. With it valuing at $63,000 and getting 80% loan to value at about 5.5% over 30 years, I was able to pull out around $47,000 and get a $267 a month payment. In this particular house, because I added a bedroom and half a bath, I'm able to get $750 a month rent from it. So after, property taxes, insurance, things like that, I'm probably netting around $400 a month. Not to mention that I have an additional probably like $13,000, $15,000 in equity because I still have that 20% in that property. So that's why this became such a massive investment, such a great opportunity for me. Okay, so you're thinking like, hold on a second, like, wow, that's crazy. How do I do that myself? Let's talk about the steps here. So the very first thing you need to do is you need to get an assessment of your current market. So no matter where you're at, you need to get a really good handle of what the current values are for these particular types of homes. Because you're not gonna be able to truly assess whether or not this is gonna work if you don't really understand what this might get appraised for. Because remember, like I said, when I saw this house was selling for $19,500, I already knew that it was gonna be worth $60,000, $65,000 once I bought it and fixed it up. One of the things that you always need to take in consideration when you're assessing one of these properties that you got to figure out what the actual going rate is going to be once it's fixed up. And then you're going to start working backwards. So like I said, let's say that you determine that this particular house after you fix it up is going to be worth $100,000. So let's say worst case scenarios, you only get 70% loan to value. That means that you would only be getting $70,000 back. So in order to get an infinite return, you got to make sure that the purchase price and the renovations do not exceed 70 grand. Of course, you have plus or minus some closing costs and things like that. For all you people watching this, you're going to get really nitpicky, which because I know you are. So let's say you find a house that's selling for $50,000 to $60,000 that you know is going to be worth $100,000 once it's fixed up. Ideally, you probably found it as an REO, a bank-owned property, or from a wholesaler, because if it's on the MLS, more than likely you're not going to be able to find that good of a deal. That's not to say that you can't though, because I have seen deals before like that. But once you do find that property that is well under the resale value, so let's say it's like 50, 60% of the resale value, now you got to figure out, can I get the renovations done within this kind of a budget? My best advice is if you do not know a lot about how much renovations cost and what needs to go into it, you need to find someone you can partner with or someone that you can hire when the time comes to build your team that will give you an accurate assessment. So that means you need to find a relative or a handyman that's able to do it, or you need to find a general contractor that can go out and do an estimation on the repairs needed in order to actually fully renovate this place. One thing I'll just tell you as a side tip, whatever they tell you, add maybe like another 10%, maybe even 20% onto that, because something always comes up during renovations. There's always extra costs. But let's say you find that house for $50,000, $60,000, and you hire someone to come in, or someone comes in and does an assessment on it, and you determine like, hey, I think the renovations are going to be like 5 or 10 grand for this particular property. Well, that means that if you buy it for 50 and it costs you $20,000 to renovate it, you're hitting right about $70,000. So as long as it gets assessed for $100,000 and you're able to do a 70% loan to value, that means that you're probably going to be able to pull out almost all of your money, like I said, minus a few like, closing costs and different things like that. But you'll be able to get almost all your money out of it, and you're going to be able to rent it out. Now, there's a few things that you need to keep in mind. You do need to assess that this is actually going to cash flow afterwards. So just because you can get all your money out, you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you do a 70% loan to value refi and your mortgage is just say like $1,000 a month, and you can only rent the place out for $800 a month because you're going to be in the red every single month. Make sure that you can rent it for more than the actual expenses. If you're able to do that, well, guess what? Now you have yourself an infinite return on a rental property. So my question is, how many of these properties do you want to have? An infinite amount, right? I mean, if you don't have to have money invested into it and you can still collect a profit, assuming that you don't over leverage too much, then you want to do this as many times as you can. And this is a great way of scaling, because let's face it, if you spend quite a few years saving up $100,000 and you plunker it all down into one property and you're not able to refi and you don't do that, well, guess what? It's going to take you a while to start building up another cash reserve in order to invest into another property. Anyways, I want to hear your thoughts on how this works. Do you have any questions, comments below? Like I said, this is something that I was able to do that is super exciting, because I was able to pull my money out and it gave me an ability to use that money to invest in other things down the road. But I really do recommend this, but I only recommend it if you really know your numbers, because doing these types of things can be a little risky depending on how it plays out. So you really got to have a strong understanding of the comps. You got to have a strong handle on renovations, and you got to really understand the numbers in general. But if you do, and you do this, this can be a very great way of scaling very fast with rental properties. Anyways, if you like this video, make sure you smash that like button for me. It would mean the world to me. Hit that subscribe button. And for more videos, make sure you keep tuning in. I hope you are staying safe and staying well, and let's crush it.